I have quiet, please. Time is 6:30. I'm going to call to order the meeting. I'd like to start with the roll call, starting to my right. Stephen McKenzie.
Patty Porter.
James Connolly.
Bob Cresco. John Miller.
Randy Vanel, School Board Rep.
Chip Huzzy, Selectman Rep.
Mark Connolly.
Vicky Bogarty Kale. Amy Ransom.
I would like the representatives from the school board only to introduce themselves, please, including the principal and superintendent, please.
Tamara Halley.
Sal Petralia, Superintendent.
Maria Emery, School Board Member.
Pat Wall, school board. I would also like to introduce Selectman, Mr. Vaughn Morgan, and Chester DeRocky, present too. Okay, one thing I'm going to ask of you before we get started, please, don't everybody jump in tonight, okay? This is very, this is a tough budget to work with. Okay? I ask you, please, I will give everybody time to discuss what they want to discuss, all right? So give the other person who is talking common courtesy to let her or him finish what they have to say, okay? So before we get started, I would like to ask Mr. Huzzy, who would like to address the board.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, we're here tonight reviewing the largest budget increase in the history of the town of Greenland. I'm sure that everyone worked on this budget, did what they felt was right, excluding negotiated wages and high school tuition, which the budget committee can't touch, can't change. We're still faced with a record increase. I have to question if the Bramble Valley development played a role in why the significant increase was felt justifiable. However, the tax revenue from that development fell far short in covering this increase. I'm looking at the school board's own figures. The tax increase on the average $400,000 home is over $600 if the proposed operating budget passes. Keep in mind that the town is looking at a library addition at a cost of over $3 million, 2 firefighter lieutenants, a new fire station in the future, at least in the next few years, and the Breakfast Hill water line, which is estimated at $12 million. And that doesn't exclude the town road repairs that we're looking at. The citizens of Greenland look to the local government to be responsible for their welfare. We have many seniors in town who are on fixed income. There are families in town who work multiple jobs to make ends meet. In fairness to these citizens, I can't approve this massive increase. Therefore, I move to reduce the bottom line budget of 2018 proposed operating budget of the Greenland School District by $400,000 to $10,543,732.
Can you repeat the number, please?
Yes.
The number is the reduction of $4,000, and the bottom line will be $10,543,732.
Make a motion.
That was a motion.
Anybody want to second that motion?
I'll second.
It's been seconded. Any discussion?
Yeah, I think he meant to say 400,000 versus 4,000.
It's $400,000 reduction.
Yeah, I think you said 4,000 for your motion. No, I'm just giving a clarification for you.
Sorry.
Thank you. Well, I, for one, nobody's going to speak up, I, for one, kind of in favor of what Mr. Huzzy just said. The reason being is, we're here for a purpose. Okay? We're here for a town, not just a school, but for a town also. Okay? We have to take that into consideration. We have a lot of people here who are on fixed income, I, for one. And every time the budget goes up, it costs me money. I don't know where I'm going to get it. Okay? So, we have a lot of things facing us. We have not seen warrant articles yet. We don't know how much that's gonna be. It's gonna be, probably a few $100,000 for the warrant articles. So, I think everything that's coming to us all of a sudden, and then we get banged with this 8.93% increase in the school budget, that's a lot. I think it's a little bit too much myself. So, I'm in favor of Mr. Huzzy, what he said. That's it.
Okay, I disagree with Mr. Howdy's motion for a couple of reasons. You gave the example of you thought maybe the school budget has this extra money that they're asking for because maybe the Bramber Valley, Bramber Green development. But that plot of land was still paying taxes before these homes were built. So it's not like it's this humongous windfall that we're seeing that everyone wants to grab a piece of. So there's that. The other thing is, I think that all of these reasons that were brought up for the town budget the other night, which are going to be brought up again, which is the 2 additional firefighters, which will be the fire station, which will be eventually someday with the discussion of the things that the police department needs. These are all things that when people were saying they needed them for the town, part of their argument was that other towns around us have them. Portsmouth pays their fire chief this much money. Rye pays their chief this much money. So I urge you to use that same line of reasoning with what the school is asking for. What they're asking for is, in my opinion, not out of the realm of reasonableness. They're asking for 2 teachers and some aides to make the middle school program up to par with where our basically surrounding competitor schools are. So we're not trying to ask for something astronomical. We're trying to put our students on a level playing field with the other towns that are going to be funneled into the same high school that the Greenland students are. We don't want our middle school to be to have a student-teacher ratio of 1 to 26, whereas Portsmouth or these other schools have this much more favorable student-teacher ratio. So I urge you to use that same argument, oh, well, Portsmouth has this and Rye has this, for the town to the same things their school is asking for.
Anybody else?
My realm of reasonableness is quite different, and I think there have been way too many increases in the last 3 years that have blown this budget out into the universe. And at some point, we need to put the brakes on for a little while. We did it a few years ago. I think it's time to do it now. We've let a lot of things go in the last couple of years. And the default budget is ballooning as well because of all of these increases in the regular budget.
Yeah, so,
Randy?
yep, thanks, Chairman. So I'm a little disappointed in coming in with a motion at the beginning of this meeting without a discussion of the budget itself. We gave the budget committee a week prior with the board, a week prior with the budget book itself. We had the summary discussion last week. This was an ad hoc meeting that wasn't planned at all, so we're all being flexible to be here tonight and discuss the budget. But we start off the meeting with a motion to discount the budget without even getting into any additional questions where we had very limited questions last week, or even a discussion of the budget itself. So that aside, I'm just disappointed in the process that this budget committee has taken to discuss the budget. So that aside, let me just add that the default budget got an increase primarily because of the full grade kindergarten classes that took effect last year as voted in by the public. And then due to the increased enrollment of the kindergarten class, we had to decide to add another teacher. So I think that in itself tells the story of what Greenland is experiencing, which is an increase of children attending our school. So that being said, we are seeing an increase, not only from the last meeting, but we've already had additional 2 kids added in from the last meeting that we had just only a week ago. So we're pushing up to 422 kids into enrollment for these kids. A lot of effort and time has gone into this, in preparing this budget, as you all know. We're all very fiscally responsible and understand the impact to the town that this has on the town and its people. We go through these items line by line, discussing, keeping that in mind, not only for the town, but also what's best for the children. So again, I would like a discussion, give questions, and I would like to understand, Chip's, where would you come up with the 400,000, as that's less than the operating default budget? So.
And Randy, today, Tamara Halley, principal of Greenland Central School, we had 3 more children enroll, or they're coming in to enroll. So we will be at 425 in January.
That's 8 kids more than the meeting we had last week.
And I have a couple of comments. Briefly on one of the points that Randy made, part of the difficulty that I have with questions and all about the budget, it's a big budget, there's a lot to go through. And when you think about it, we really don't have a lot of time to really study it before we get it. I don't consider a week a lot of time. I understand there's logistic problems about that and stuff, but that's the fact. So that's briefly about that. My overall comment is, I believe it's everyone's responsibility that lives in this town to educate the children and to educate them to the best of our ability. So my gut feeling always is to do as much as I can to make sure that the children in Greenland are getting the best education. I sent 3 children to the Greenland school. I think they all got a great education. So that's my overall picture. Based on somewhat of what Tippy said, I think it's difficult, though, to always compare yourself to towns, to different towns. We would like Greenland to have the best educated children anywhere in the country. But I guarantee you, a town like Colebrook, New Hampshire, and I'm not really familiar with Colebrook, but I understand some of the issues they've had in the past. That town doesn't have the financial ability to support their schools the way maybe some other towns do. And Greenland may not have the financial ability to support our children, maybe the way some other towns do. I think we're better off than Colebrook, but I don't live in Rye, I don't know all Rye's finances. I don't live in Newcastle, I don't know all theirs. I don't live in Newington, I don't know all theirs. So we have to be careful about always comparing ourselves to other towns. And my final point is, I think $400,000 is a big chunk of money. Based on my other years in the Budget Committee and just briefly last year, I'm not sure that the school can really do $400,000. So before I would vote on a motion like that, I would like to hear specifically from the business administrator, from the school board, from the principal, if they had to lose $400,000, what it would do to that school. Because it seems to me that there's only 2 ways you get big chunks of money, and that's by cutting staff or cutting programs. Most everything else is nickel and dime. So I would want to know, and I'm not saying there's no, one of my questions tonight was going to be, what programs does the school offer that we're not required to offer? And then when we find those out, let's look at those programs and find out, are they really necessary for a great education for our students, or could some of them be scaled back or even go away? And so those are my comments.
Thank you, Mark. Don, you want to say something?
Yes, I was going to say something. I'm going to ask Mr. Huzzy if he would consider removing his motion from the floor for the present time, and Mr. McKenzie to remove his second, so that we can get into a discussion about the budget and see if we can answer some of the questions that you have. And I also have some questions too. I feel the children in Greenland need an adequate education. Unfortunately, I'm one of them senior citizens that doesn't get a big increase every year in their pay. I can't go to anybody and see if I can negotiate a raise or increase my salary. I live in a very simple house, okay, and my taxes are, I guess, adequate for that house. But I'm not the only one on this board, and I'm not the only one in this town. And when I ran for this office, that was part of my platform, that I would try to protect the senior citizens in town from overinflated budgets, or what I see to be overinflated budgets. So that's my comment, and that's my question to both of these gentlemen.
I'm
You're
gonna leave it on,
reserving the right to.
I'm gonna leave it on the floor, we can still discuss it, but I want you to realize this is a 4.7% increase on the previous year's budget. We have a couple of things I just looked over and forgot all about. We gotta pay Rockingham County for 18 months, not 12 this year. So it's gonna really add, again, to the bottom line. As a selectman, I can't look at the school budget by itself. I can't look at the town budget by itself. If I did, I'd be looking at the school budget at $600 increase for average home, and the town budget's $4. So it's really unfair, because the school has so many more employees, it actually is gonna have more money involved. Town budget, I think, is under 3 right now.
Yep.
I felt over 9 was out of line for all the other stuff that's coming down the pipe. Not that it's wrong, it's not that anyone had a bad idea, it's just all the other stuff coming down the pipe that we gotta deal with. It's not just the school, I want you to realize that. I think, as I said in the beginning, looking at what they went through with this budget, they put a lot of work into it, not denying that. It's the bottom line, the pocketbook, we have to watch out for.
Yep.
I definitely understand where both camps are coming from. So, Mr. McKenzie, I understand, and Mr. Hussey, Don, I understand that, you know, the committee needs to be respectful of everybody's circumstances, certainly. And that's why when discussing the town budget, I was trying to kind of get to the bottom of where these kind of larger jumps were coming from. What's the $15,000? Tell me more about this gas. Do we really need to get the gas here? All these things. So, and I also agree with Chip that you can't look at the school budget in a vacuum. You can't look at the town budget in a vacuum, right? You've got to look at them together. But I want to just point out, and maybe I'm misunderstanding this, or if I am, feel free to correct me, but Mark mentioned in his comments just now that, you know, some schools have all these things, and Greenland is asking for all these things, but maybe Greenland can't afford all these things. So maybe Greenland should be happy with something closer to the middle ground, or maybe like a bare minimum, but still a good education. Right? Am I kind of conceptualizing that correctly?
I wouldn't put it that, well, I guess you could put it that way. No different than one family can buy the fanciest Mercedes, and another family can only buy
A Honda.
a Honda.
Okay, so let's say that's a good example. So let's say we're working with a Honda here at the Greenland Central School. We're asking for a Honda. So, under that premise, I urge you to think about our town budget when our fire chief and our police chief come in here and they say, I don't think we can do a Mercedes job unless I have 2 more people on my payroll unless I pay this person $15,000 more because I think that person deserves it, and they probably do deserve it. But I think that our town is asking for a Mercedes, and I think that everyone's just going to give it to them, and maybe they deserve it. I think that's great. Maybe we need to re-look at that a little bit more closely. I think the same kind of microscope needs to be given to our school because they are asking for something that is not a Mercedes. They're asking for, the school board could have put so much more into this budget. They could have asked for iPads. They could have asked for a better computer system for the front office. They could have asked for more money. They could have asked for $15,000 more for any of these people sitting behind me, but they didn't. They worked very hard on this, and they came up with something that they thought was fair and reasonable, just like our fire chief did, just like our police chief did. It's fair and reasonable, and they have the numbers and the metrics to back it up. So I think what might be going on here, and again, I definitely feel free to educate me if I'm wrong on this, but I think what might be going on here is there might be a little bit of a lack of information happening from what the school is asking for to the budget committee. I think I am super invested in the school because I have kids in the school. I know kind of what the needs are, what's happening, but I think the people who don't have the kids in the school might just need a little bit more information. Maybe if Randy, if you could just speak a little bit more about what's happening with this middle school program, maybe that would help. Maybe you have all the information you need, Steve, but it sounds like you don't because when you were...
I have all the information I need. I have been working on these things for the last 6 years. And the town is not going for a Mercedes, and the school is going for the Mercedes, and we can get by with a Chevy. And a Chevy is not bad. It's not like we're deplorable. And the town has been very frugal in their approach to things. And I am flabbergasted by the amount of increases in the last 2-3 years in this whole budget.
What I think you're missing here is that this kindergarten thing, I think that you're upset a little bit about this third kindergarten teacher that had to happen.
No, I voted for the kindergarten. But I'm talking about all of these new positions coming in. We haven't looked at our structure there as far as maybe we need to look at a middle school approach to going outside and using the facilities that we have for the increases coming. But nobody's talking about that.
Okay.
No, we have, Steve. We looked at tuition options at Portsmouth Middle School as well as having a co-op school with Rye. And we're going to be in the same situation as a tuition as we are with a high school. So it's something to think about how expensive that could be, right? I think that's definitely still on the table because the school itself is could be potentially reaching capacity within a few short years. So instead of building a new building, or we already started looking at tuitioning out to or joining forces with another town. So please don't think we haven't. We have. This is definitely a more inexpensive solution for the short term.
I mean, even with Mr. Hussey's number, that's over $500,000 increase in the budget from last year. And last year was even more than that.
James, I know you have something to say.
Well, unfortunately, I can't put myself in the shoes of someone on a fixed income. I can't do that. So I can understand how this increase, would drastically impact, a fixed income person's home. When I look at the school budget, I look at, Randy, thank you for answering those questions. To me, it does boil down to class size. And unlike years past, we've always had the stagger of 2 classes, 3 classes, 2 classes, 2 classes. But now with the increase in school population, it's now 3 classes, 3 classes, 3 classes. And could be 4 classes, 4 classes, 4 classes, depending on 5 years from now, there's more development, but that's more the planning board side. So, and I agree with Mark in a way that, you know, the programs that the school does implement or provide to the children, you know, what is the, I don't want to say minimum, but are we overshooting on some things? You know, like, well, STEM is available through the state, or STEM like programs available through, you know, whomever we can, you know, and it's going to cost X amount to teach this to our students. Are we on the front end of, you know, of teaching this to kids, and, you know, versus other schools and such? And, you know, so I was in sticker shock when I saw this budget. I mean, the percentage increase was dramatically higher than I had thought. You know, I hate to say this, but I almost challenged the school board to, okay, I get the extra teachers, I get where you guys want to go with this, but what else in the budget isn't necessary? I mean, well, is necessary versus isn't necessary? You know, I mean, are there any cuts that can be done in the budget, you know, where the school doesn't need to, you know, provide to our students? You follow what I'm saying? That's the piece that I'm struggling with, and I'm also struggling because I have kids in the school. I want my kids to do good in school and have get a great education and a better education than myself. But again, I can sympathize with those who are on a fixed income, and you know, this type of increase to the tax rate is detrimental to some, and it's our job as a budget committee to figure out the best way to somehow balance this, you know, because it seems like it's definitely, there's a divide. There's pro-school, I don't want to say anti-school, you know what I mean, but there's some people that absolutely hate the budget and some people that like the budget. So, you know, so anyways, don't mean to be long-winded, but.
No, that's what we're here for. Go ahead, Patty.
I have a daughter in the school too. I'm very invested in the school. I want to love the budget. I want to love the school budget. I want to do what's necessary. I think that the numbers the student population is getting very high, and I understand all the work that was put into the budget and why. I think looking at all sides of it, though, it has been a lot in the past few years, and I think that it's hard for some people to wrap their heads around there. We used to wait year by year, when can we have an assistant principal? Because, we don't want to put it in the budget this year because this might be going on, and there was always a little bit of give and take, and then we finally got the assistant principal, kindergarten, something everybody wanted for years. When was the right time to do it? And finally that happened last year, and I think those things were long overdue. I think it was something that was always kind of out there, and I know the numbers are getting really high, and I can completely understand looking at the middle school and where we are in class sizes and in the other classes. A lot's changed since I've been following this for 8 years, and I have a son in high school already, and every year from kindergarten to first, we'd go and we'd have a meeting. Is there one extra student to get that first grade class? And it was looked at like a microscope. So I can understand everyone's perspective in this, and I want to do what's right for the school and the town, and that's what I'm trying to say.
Thank you, Patty. Yes, Don?
Well, in case I came across the wrong way, I had 3 children who went through the school. I have 5 grandchildren. 1 is there now. 1 will be in kindergarten next year. And I have just as much an interest in the school as you do, or any of you who have children in the school. However, I had a position in this town as fire chief at one time where I had to sit and do a budget, and we sat together, the officers, and we'd sit there, okay, we got 10 this year, let's go for 11 next year, and we'll justify it with this. And we'll go with 5 this year, we'll justify it with this. And so help me, there isn't a person on the school board, I'll bet, that can say, oh, no, I never did that, honestly, okay? Or any teacher or administrator. If those are in here, this is what we're looking at, folks. Can you scale it back a little bit, okay? The increase is just, it's overwhelming, okay, for a town of this size. We're growing like crazy. Unfortunately, it was mentioned earlier about the services, okay? 2 lieutenants and a high-paid, make-believe chief, I guess you want to call it. But he isn't, okay? Honestly, he's a good chief. But the point being is that we've had an increase of 70 homes, 2 people per home. They're all senior citizens. They call for an ambulance. Where's it going to come from if we don't hire this person? I guess the question in my mind is if there's a choice between that lieutenant and separating a 24 classroom to 12 and 12, I gotta go with the services first, okay? I'm not saying these teachers are overworked. They probably are, okay? They do a lot of things on the side. I hear all the commercials, how they're spending their own money. Ellen's giving away money to all these school systems. Well, hey, Ellen, come on here, will you? I just want you to know basically where I'm coming from. I guess another question I'd like to throw right now is people that have gone through the budget on this committee and looked at it, and there are probably some single things pointed out that I saw and somebody else saw for the increases. May I ask questions of the administrator?
Go ahead.
Okay. Chromebooks. Okay, every year we get new Chromebooks or iPads. Okay? Do we need $20,000 more of Chromebooks? Okay, it was 22 last year. You requested 18. Okay, and this year you're requesting $41,738 for Chromebooks and iPads. And here's another question I may throw out. Where do the old ones go? And you replace them. Do I have an opportunity to buy one of them things on the market? Or do you people put them out to bids? Or do the teachers buy them? Okay, there's a question there. There's $21,000, okay, in one item. I understand in the day of technologies that kids do homework and they get assignments on these computers, but I also understand their classroom computers. Are these going home to be worked with the kids? I know my 6th grade granddaughter doesn't have one. So. But I guess this is one item that I kind of spotted, okay, and then I understand too, if somebody would get in, explain to me a little more on the special needs. Okay, yeah, good, but I'll guess, the first question is on the Chromebooks.
Okay. I'm gonna make one final comment, and then we're gonna vote on this motion, okay?
We're still open for discussion though, Bob.
Everybody's spoken. You want to begin?
He has
No,
questions that must be answered, and
Okay.
I actually have a couple comments as well.
Okay.
I believe 2 years ago, we approved $20,000 for Chromebooks, and then
Every year.
last year we approved 20,000.
Yeah.
So maybe,
We've had grants, by the way. We've had grants that have replaced, that actually paid for that money.
One at a time, Randy, please.
but I think though that next time the budget's presented, project backward maybe 1 more year so we can start to see it more of a trend. Right? I think that would be just a suggestion.
Okay, Randy, you want to say something?
I just want to, before we get to Don's question, I just want to remind the board that Greenland is the lowest, we spend the lowest cost per student in the Seacoast community. Also adding in Stratham, so keep that in mind. Cost per student is the cheapest in this area, and that's the town of Greenland. The other thing is that the school board, this is my 3rd year in the school board, and we always work diligently on keeping our costs down. As you know, we've had a boiler that's over 50 years old, and every year we just can't seem to ask for the money for that boiler to be replaced. because we have other priorities.
Last year,
We have other,
This is the
Yeah,
first year
we have
you haven't
other-
seen the
First
three.
year you haven't asked for it.
this year,
19.
I'm saying this year.
in 19.
What happened to one person talking, Bob? So,
Oh, you get it.
so this is the first, but because of the money available, because of the money available, we always do a prioritization. So I just wanted to say that. So then to answer Dawn's questions, and Tamara, correct me if I'm wrong on the technology budget, but, so this isn't all Chromebook and iPads, this is also a first phase to improve on the networking infrastructure. And why I say that is because that is 6 years old. And the entire school infrastructure uses technology integrated into the classroom. So there's Wi-Fi in every classroom for the kids to work on the Chromebooks and the iPads. And yes, everyone's been very good about helping us get iPads and Chromebooks for the classes over the years. We have a very good life cycle when it comes to technology. So we replace Chromebooks every 3 to 5 years and iPads every 4 to 6 years, I think it is.
Yep.
And this is that cycle to start replacing those older iPads. Some of the teachers also have laptops. Those are much older than the iPads and the Chromebooks, and we're looking to replace some of those laptops. And then the network, by the way, so the networking infrastructure itself, that was a I believe it was an $80,000 expense 6 years ago. So instead of asking for that total amount, we're starting again just to phase it in. So we're keeping it. I think the request for that right now is around $20,000. So I hope that answers your question, Don. Oh, and then how they get sold? They get put into recycle. Yeah, into recycle with our electronic vendors.
The Chromebooks, the 50 Chromebooks are replacing the ones in 2013. Okay, so it is a cycle. Chromebooks, and while they're cheap, it's great, but they are kind of disposable. They don't really have a very long lifespan where a Dell or an Apple will last you longer. Chromebooks really aren't meant to. They're cheap money for what you get, which is great because you can outfit 50 of them for $9,500. So it's part of the cycle that's going to be going through. They did, I know we try not to inundate you with all the paperwork that we had, but we had constant reductions from technology, and I know that it's a large item, but there are they're replacing some donated iPads from the K through second grade cart. They asked for 25, they went down to 20. One of the items that all the districts except for Newington are faced with is the federal government has reduced the refunds, which is one of the things that a lot of school districts across the state use to buy technology. You don't really have to write the grant to show what the outcome will be or the activity will be. You literally go buy the technology and put in the receipt, and the federal government gives you that money. That money disappeared in May. Nobody knew that money was going to disappear. They just all of a sudden said REAP's not available to you. So in order to keep the technology in the school, we have to put that money into the budget. So that's why it's in the proposed request column. It's not a default item. It goes into the request. One thing I would just like to point out that's a really huge driver to me. Yes, there's a lot of changes to special education and some staffing changes and that, but one of the biggest impacts to this budget is the tuition of Portsmouth High School. It's $370,000 that the school board and the staff and administration had nothing to do with. That just comes as a tuition bill. They have no control. So they're obligated to pay for those students to go, and they are Greenland students. So a part of me wants to say you're $400,000, while I understand that's mostly the Portsmouth High School piece.
That had nothing to do with it.
No, but I mean, that
I want to make that
encompasses-
perfectly clear for the record.
Yeah.
That was nothing to do with it. We can't touch that, know that. We can't touch your negotiated wages either.
Neither can we, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that we have to pay that obligation. So that means the $400,000 cut then affects the elementary, the K to 8 school, for something that they have no control over. So it's just important for me to point that piece out, that if this motion were to pass, I still have to pay Portsmouth High School. So the cuts come from Greenland Central School, and that is staff and services.
Thank you. Yes.
I have a quick numbers question. I see that there's a proposed raise for most of the staff. in the school of 2.75%. Is that per the contracts, the teacher's contract?
No, those are for non-union staff, so where you
Okay.
see the principals, I see you have the nurse page.
Right.
Those people are not covered by the collective bargaining agreement.
Okay.
So that's what the school board is proposing, to put in at 2.7.
2.75. Who came up with that number?
We talked about it district-wide, the superintendent, we brought it to the school board, and the school board was supportive of that
Okay.
number.
So just to point this out, so the non-union people at the school level, 2.75, whereas across the board at the town level is a 3.0 raise. So, like, as you see, there, across the board, there are at least at the school budget level, it's not, I feel like that's a little bit of a concession, at least, to not try to make the budget totally outrageous. I mean, did that play a part in the discussion at all to try to, even out the budget?
To the towns?
No, for the school budget. I mean, it's a lower raise than the people who work for the town are getting.
We weren't aware of what the town was getting,
Okay.
if that wasn't,
Everybody.
How many non-union
there,
administrators?
so there's the administrators, the paraprofessionals, there's no, I'm sorry, there's no, correct me, there's
I'm
no,
sorry,
there's
what's the
no
question?
there's no para-union in Greenland, correct?
No.
Thank you, I just wanted to double check, still learning all my communities. So it would be the custodians, the paraprofessionals, the secretaries, the food service workers,
Nurses.
the nurses, the principal, the assistant principal.
So 25 people? Maybe?
I can add them up for you if I look, but
Yes,
Mr. Chair, thank you. In response to some earlier comments, for the committee and also for the public, I just want to highlight something from last year's executive summary that you have already seen and reviewed. In 2012-13, the increase to the gross operating budget was $33,000 roughly that year, for an increase of less than 0.5%. Following year 13-14, increase of $706,000, increase of 9.13%. 14-15, increase of $40,000, an increase once again of less than 0.5%. 15-16, $817,000, 9.63%. 16-17, increase of $368,000, 3.96%. The three-year average for the district's gross operating budget has increased 4.69%. So I dispute some earlier commentary about the last 3 years being through the roof. 5-year average 4.73, and a 10-year average 2.97% for the school district budget. The comment that I think is most enlightening, page 13 of last year's proposed budget. The reviewer should note that 6 out of the last 10 years, the budget has increased less than 1%. So I dispute the commentary that this budget has been out of control for 3, 5, 7, 9 years. That data does not support that. The other piece I will respond to Tibby's comment about non-union employees, 2.75%. For a paraprofessional or a food service worker earning $14.50 per hour, that's approximately 29.5-cent raise. Like to just say those things to put things into perspective.
thank you, so. I agree with what you're saying, I agree with it. Everybody's saying, okay? I too had $3 go through the school system. I have a teacher, okay? My oldest is a teacher in Stratford, been there for 28 years. I know what she's going through. That's not the point. The point is, we have so much facing us this year. That's the point. For the people who live in Brahma Valley and up the other end of town, we have an evaluation going on. All of us are going to be reevaluated. And that's going to be, I understand, 15% increase in taxes. On top of this, on top of the library, everything else. That's, I'm not against the school, so don't get me wrong. I'm for the school. But you gotta watch out for the dollars in this town. We got so much going on. That's what I'm afraid of.
The last comment I wish to make,
Yes.
actually in response to Mr. Conley earlier. I'm speaking only on behalf of our administration. The board can obviously speak for themselves. But for us to answer any questions tonight about what the possibility of a $400,000 cut or a $200,000 cut would be, I think that would be premature. We would have to regroup, whatever your decision is. We would have to regroup as an administration and as a school board, work collaboratively, and then come up with a plan that addresses the decision that the budget committee makes.
We understand that, so it's not something that we're gonna do right now, no, definitely not. Thank you.
Can I just answer Mr. Collins?
Yes, go ahead.
That it's approximately 36 employees.
36 employees.
Anybody else have anything to say before we take a vote on?
Yeah, I'd like to clarify one point.
Yes.
The boiler hasn't been in the budget for, as far as I've been involved with the budget committee, which was 6 years, and then on the school board, which was another 5. It's always been talked about, we know it's the elephant in the closet, but we've never put it in there. We've always used retainage as our basically backstop, and that's the plan right now, so it's not in there.
We established a,
Thanks, Pat.
we established a reserve fund for that.
We're using the retainage for that.
Yeah, but took the money from the retainage and put it into the reserve.
No, that's not how it works, actually. We had a, Steve, there's a reserve for building and grounds. You may be thinking of that fund, which we did pull some money out of this year to save us painting the SAU building every 3 or 4 years. So there was money removed from that. The other fund that we would lean on for the boiler would be the retainage account. We'd probably end up having to clean out that SAU building and grounds fund and then go back, and then we'd clean out our maintenance, our normal maintenance account, and then anything left to make up the gap would end up coming out of retainage after we wrote to the state and got the approval from the state.
Thank you, Pat. Yes, Don?
I'm not sure exactly the inner workings of totally of the Municipal Budget Act, but I believe no matter what we do tonight, it'll only be a recommendation.
That's all it is.
Okay? If the school board wishes to come back with a lower figure, okay, then basically what it'll be is that the deliberative session, there'll be a recommendation by this board and a recommendation from the school board as to what the budget should be. They will discuss it in a larger arena. Hopefully the speakers are a little better this year, that we can understand them, because I can remember, this is my 4th year on the budget committee, and every one of them hearings, I could never understand what was going on or hear them, and I was promised that is being corrected. So, as the new principal, please.
Not the budget.
No. I'll tell you what, I'll give you a couple $100. No, the point being is that we're discussing this tonight, and there are people that are saying things that they feel and want to bring to the table. But the final is going to be a deliberative session, and then finally, on election day in March, when you go pick up your ballot and you pick this budget or this budget. Okay, changes can be made by the public. Okay, on a deliberative session, they can get up and, people can get up and say 0. And the whole place goes tumbling down. So, just so that everybody knows where I'm coming from when the vote comes around, that this is only a recommendation. The motion is to have the budget committee consider recommending a cut of $400,000. And when the vote is finally taken, if the vote is yes that way, that's the way it'll go to the public hearing in the deliberative session, but that could be changed by the public. If there's anything on the Municipal Budget Act that I'm not familiar with, that I'm wrong, please somebody correct me.
No. That's the way it happens. No. Okay. All right. Go ahead, James.
I guess this is kind of directed towards you. I mean, I understand your kids had 20, your children had 26 kids per classroom
at that time.
School.
Dawn's too.
Right. times have changed.
Yeah, I realize that.
Right. So I just don't think 26 students per classroom is feasible at this point in time, especially with what teachers are required to do and also what Tamara is required to do with the teachers for the state. So I just want to state that.
Thank you.
May I speak, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Pat?
What we, as a board, would look for in you folks is a number. I'd like some clarification on CHIPS. Whatever number you ultimately end up, let us know what it is, then we will go back and look at it. Chip, if there's something substantive other than a percentage behind, please let me finish. Something substantive behind your number, or is it just a percentage? Just let us know that, so we can kind of take it, put that one under the light and take a look at it, you know? So, I'm not saying that in a critical way.
No, I know. I'll be honest with you. I'm not qualified, after looking this at for a week, to even begin to make any judgments on what you should be cutting.
So it's a percentage.
It's just a percentage. I didn't expect 3%. I was looking for around 5% when you came back, and when you hit over 9, I said, there's no way that's gonna fly with me. That's very simply what it was. It's just too much coming down the pike on the other scale, to be honest with everybody.
And then, I guess, what we will do, once you folks arrive at what that number is, collectively, you know, because I don't want to say, well, here's what it looked like with 4, and here's what it looked like with 6. You know, give that to Randy, and then we'll go back and take a look at what we can do. I also want to remind you of one very important point, and Amy hammered on it last week, and it needs to be told again. Last year, we took 15 students out of the budget.
Yeah.
We rolled forward $180,000 out of an expendable trust. So now we're getting hit twice on that, because we're not doing it this year. So we're in this catch-up thing. So that 180 is basically doubled, and that's why you see that 370K in there. How long do we do that? That's sort of a, I don't want to say it's a global question, but it's a question, how long are we going to be chasing it on there? See, when we pull something out, we have to pull it out of a specific account. Unlike them, the town has a little more flexibility, they can pull it out of a more generalized account. So we end up trying to play catch-up to put that back in, because it's a negative on that budget. Just, I want to make sure people really understand what that means.
Well,
Yes, Chip?
just on the school side, you guys turned back over 200,000 last year, it's over 300,000. That's probably something which you may want to look where those figures are coming from to see if you need to move them.
We're running pretty lean this year, and I think Amy is giving us real-time data on that. Ideally, we shouldn't be turning back that much.
No.
However, we did turn back 267,000. That represents more than a penny cut in the tax rate, so I don't know where it all went. But that's another story for another meeting someday, or over a beer with somebody, I don't know.
Thanks,
Can I
Pat.
ask a
Yes, go
question?
ahead.
What happened to the 75,000 to be placed into the tuition expendable trust fund from last year's warrant?
It was placed in there.
Okay, so there is money there.
Yes,
Pat just said 100, it was 187. We took some money out last night.
last night.
We have just about $187,000 left, which gives us a flexibility of about 10 increased students at PHS. So it's not a great buffer, Steve, but it's a buffer.
Can I ask one more question?
Go right ahead.
Can we look at again this year of trying to talk with Portsmouth on the tuition? I know it's something we talk about every year, and I know we have no say, if I recall, but are there any steps, any chinks in the armor, any where we can, somehow start to have a say in what the tuition actually is?
Well, tomorrow night, the superintendent is going to recommend to the SAU Joint Board to form a committee, because it does affect more than just Greenland, it's Rye, Newington, and Newcastle. So they're going to form a committee. Though, in order to change the area agreement, it has to be voted on all the communities. So it's not just something that you agree to here in Greenland, Portsmouth also has to agree to it. it's gonna be a long process. I would say it's not something that would be done in 6 months, maybe a year. By next budget process, we might have an idea of a change, if there's a change that could possibly happen. Portsmouth also is on a different schedule than we are. They vote later than we do. They're a city, so they don't vote, I believe, until June. So their ballots, all that stuff, is not in the same time frame that we're on. They haven't even started their budget yet. I looked at their time schedule. They literally don't present to their budget committee, the selectmen, their city council, until May. So the number that they give us is truly an estimate, but I have a feeling that if we start working together with Portsmouth and their secondary advisory committee, it's going to take a bit of time. It is something we are looking at because it is coming up. And I know it's a concern to say, I have to write a check for this amount of money and we have no say.
Thank you.
But we are working on that.
Thank you, and thank you, Sal.
Tip?
I have a question toward that end, which is, I know that there are, it's more than just the money issue involved in this area agreement. And I feel like every meeting that we have here and nothing that's been done about this agreement is like, what can we do? What can anybody do to help with this situation? I mean, I feel like, obviously it's not an issue for the budget committee, but there's more than just that, right? Okay, so I feel like we keep talking about this, and obviously this tuition is the biggest part of this school budget. And there are things that we would love to discuss other than that, but I think what I'm saying is, if there's anything that we can do to push this process forward more quickly, then we would love to know.
I know there are ideas about representation on the school board. There's issue about when the transportation and the busing schedule got changed. Just having a say. I know there's more than just budgeting issues. There's special education issues. There's, a lot of things that would be brought up. But we also have to keep in mind that opening up the area agreement, we want things to favor us, but I'm sure Portsmouth would also be looking for things to favor them. So sometimes it's a double-edged sword when you open up those types of things. We might,
It's been favoring them.
They have, which is true,
Always.
but I'm sure there's something on there and that I don't understand that they might want changed to, like, say, benefit them more.
Yep.
So but that's something we have to get into, and I have a very good relationship with the business administrator in Portsmouth. So, I call him up, explain this to me, how does this work? He gave me the whole spreadsheet on how we calculate the tuition. If you want at some later date, I'm more than willing to do a presentation on how that whole calculation works, so you know where the number comes from.
Have you talked to any other schools?
As far as to lead the area agreement, that is a huge undertaking. It's not as easy to leave an area agreement. You just can't say I'm not coming to you next year. It's a process.
Well, I know that.
But to look into other schools, I would say that, because I came from Exeter High School does not have room. I don't know if Winnicott would have room. I mean, it gets into, sorry, it becomes a process. It could be a 2 or 3 year study committee to make sure that you find, because then there's transportation to get the students maybe even further away. How far is too far? And you still have a tuition agreement where they're going to want to make sure it's worth their while. If they have to build out, if they have to buy computers, hire teachers, you're going to sign a 20-year agreement. They want to know you're in for the long haul. You just can't come for 5 years and leave and go somewhere else for 5 years and leave and go somewhere else for 5 years. So I would say it would take a good 2 or 3 years to just study where can you go and how can you do it. Or do you make a cooperative? Do you I'm not, for the record, that's not the school board's idea, but I mean, that becomes a conversation. Do you want to do that? Because that's a marriage. I said that when I was in SAU 16, you will never get out of. Because there are people in Newfield and Stratham that want to get out of SAU 16 cooperative, and I have explained to them that is a marriage you will never get out of. So it's a serious discussion to have to make sure everybody knows what is it that you're doing and what are you getting into.
10 to 15 years ago, I've been on the budget committee that long. We were talking about that, okay? Town of Greenland and Stratham, building our own high school. That did come up, but it didn't work out. So, but we thought.
Because they'd have to get out of the cooperative, and they formed it 20 years ago.
Exactly. The motion is still on the board, on the table here. So let's take a vote on this motion. find out if we're gonna proceed or what we're gonna do, so, the motion, receive your motion, please.
Reduce the bottom line of the 2018 proposed operating budget of the Greenland School District by $400,000 to $10,543,732.
And that was seconded. Okay, those in favor? Aye. Those not in favor? Okay. I guess we proceed for the time being. Okay. I have to agree with Mark Conley about when we got the books. There wasn't very much time to go over them, and that's why I was after Amy for 2 or 3 weeks in advance to get us this budget so we could really study it, and we really didn't have that much time to study it. So I'm going to ask if anybody has any particular questions on what they read so far. While we have Amy here and the superintendent, they can answer their questions.
But really fast, the new plan is, if I have a question for the school board, what do? I can't ask the whole group because that's a meeting, right? But I can ask Randy, and then he can tell Charlotte, and then Charlotte can tell me, and then I can tell us. No?
No.
He can tell you direct.
Just send it to Charlotte.
But you do not reply all as the simplest answer
Right.
Yeah, but
to.
then, but so then I just have it in my head, and then I can just share it with you or not?
Yeah.
You can share
The
with
meeting,
us.
you
At a meeting.
It's just
Is
email.
that open to the public?
Alright.
It's just over email.
Yeah.
Phones.
Do you have a question right now?
No, I'm just clarifying.
Don't worry, it drives everybody nuts.
Yes, Don?
Okay, this bottom line proposed budget includes the 2 new teachers.
What page you want first?
Bullet,
Number 1 or 2?
Tab 1.
tab 1,
Tab 1, okay.
$11,067.07. $11,067,732
Keep straightening it out.
includes the proposed new 2 new teachers.
In
In the 292, so if you're looking at in the green section,
Yeah.
In the warrant articles, which is,
Oh,
so it's not.
If you look at the request
The
column.
budget really is 10 million, 10
Oh,
million.
okay.
Bottom line.
Okay. So the 2 teachers are part of the bottom line, the operating budget.
yes, they're in the column.
Okay.
If you go up in the green
Yeah,
section where it
I got
says
it.
requests.
Yep, yep.
It's in the 292,726.
In order to reduce this budget, would the school board consider placing the 2 teachers in a warrant article?
They're usually not in the warrant article, they're usually in the budget, when you ask for new teachers.
I didn't ask if they would usually, I asked would they consider it.
Yeah, we've done that before, Don.
Yes.
We did, the kindergarten was in the warrant article.
Yeah.
But when we have, we've had lengthy discussion about this, about warrant articles versus the operating budget. And the board decided that, this is something that, for day-to-day use of the school, this is to address regular school programs, not something particularly new like a kindergarten program. This is to address really enrollment sizes. So we decided to, we voted in favor to keep it within the operating budget and not as a warrant article. But we can discuss it again tomorrow.
Okay, so the next question would be then, if the town agrees only to accept the default budget, you wouldn't get them 2 teachers?
That's the risk.
Right.
That was the risk we decided to take, was to.
Okay, so they're not in there in the default budget?
Yes, put your name, please.
Sorry, Maria Emery, School
Thank
Board.
you.
I believe our 7th grade numbers are so high that we are approaching the state limit for class size. And so if we put that teacher in a warrant article and it doesn't pass, then we won't be able to do it. And I worry that we may find ourselves out of the law with the state of New Hampshire based on class size.
You heard of no means known.
Excuse me?
No means no. There was a community, I believe it was Bedford, that wanted an assistant principal, and it was in a warrant article. And the taxpayers voted no on that warrant article. Then the school district found money within its budget and hired the assistant principal anyway. So then somebody in the community sued. And it was ruled that no means no. The community said no to the warrant article. No, you cannot have the teacher or the principal. So that's the premise of no means no.
I'm only using these teachers as an example because I can't see any other money that, off the top of my head, to ask these questions about. If the default budget goes through, you said those teachers would not be.
Correct.
What?
Can I just,
Okay.
the teachers would not go through, the technology request would not go through, the raises to non-union staff would not go through, because there's no money
Okay.
to support.
However, if you found money in there to do these things, you could still do them.
Correct. Say two students moved out of Greenland and we didn't have to pay Portsmouth High School tuition on them, that money could be used by the school board to purchase computers or give raises to the administrative staff. So yes, it's a bottom line budget after it's voted on.
And then, if I may ask another question. I think it's the first meeting that we had with you people, I recollect correctly, somebody said that they were expecting new students in January. How does this information, how do you get this information? You know who's moving to town?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really?
Yes, they give us a phone call and then they come in and pick up a registration packet. So today, for example, 3 new students came in to the school at the end of the day. I gave them a tour. They've moved to Greenland.
From Nigeria, right?
From Nigeria, yeah.
They come in and ask you all about the school and activities and all that stuff?
Yes, and
Really?
I gave them a tour of the school,
Wow.
and they were very excited to be a part of our community.
Well, typically when people go,
Yes,
people
Pat?
go looking for a house, they'll tour a school.
Amy, did you mention that the school, I might have misheard you, that if the default budget went through, the school would operate as is? Okay.
They wouldn't be able, I mean, not that they wouldn't be able to, they, like I said, if somebody moved out, they'd have to take the funds from somewhere else to, if they needed that 7th grade teacher, or they needed the technology piece of it, because the Chrome cart died and they needed to buy another 20. They'd have to find it within that default operating budget. They'd have to give up something. They'd have to say, okay, your Tamara's supplies, we're gonna cut all the supply lines by 5% because I have to pay for this. We would have to live within the bounds of the default.
Can I look down the road a little bit?
Go ahead, while you got the floor.
Where part of this program, I believe, is getting into a middle school concept. Do I look down the future in a couple of years looking for a middle principal and a middle assistant principal? Or would it still be incorporated? Could it still be incorporated within the structure that we have now?
We feel pretty confidently that with the current configuration of staffing and administrative supervisory staff, Carla Rice, who's seated to Tamara's right, your left, is the special ed coordinator, so her responsibility lies in the field of special education, supervising the case managers, special ed teachers, special education paraprofessionals, preparing the special education portion of the budget in concert with Tamara Halley, recommending it to us. The position of assistant principal that was approved the previous cycle, Tegan Von Bern assists Tamara as the building principal, along with supervisory aspects, program curriculum development, professional learning for staff, and all of the duties assigned as part of the job description. So I'm pretty confident to say that there would be no need, regardless of the increasing enrollment, particularly at the middle school level, to consider another administrative position at all.
That was one of my questions too.
Sorry. Can I just add to that real quick?
Yes.
Yeah, just to add real quick. There's not that many K through 8 schools in the state of New Hampshire, so we have an advantage where we can share administration across K through 8. And I just want to say I looked at the state average costs, and they have a line item for administration. We're actually way under the state average for administration. We're actually over the state average when it comes to instruction. So I think we're spending the money where it really needs to be.
Can I ask a question
ahead.
about the default budget? You've got salary and non-salary, and then a total. Is any of the non-salary, is that contractual?
You mean contracted service or contractual as in the employee works for us and they have a contract?
In a contract for raises?
Because the section you're looking at is the purple, so that's the current operating budget. The teachers' salary raises, their increases are contractual. They are in the default budget because you voted for that warrant article. And when you vote for the warrant article for a collective bargaining agreement, you see a multi-year. If it's 3 years, you'll see 3 years worth of cost, or 5 years. That's called the San Bernardine. That means you have notified the voting body of what the estimated cost would be going forward, of what could end up in your budget going forward.
But,
So those budgets,
but the non-salary, is that
that's pens,
subject to
paper.
the default?
It's what you had last year, plus or minus any contractual obligations. So if
Do you have contractual obligations with non-salaried?
we have copier contracts, we have fuel oil contracts, we have transportation contracts.
Personnel.
But personnel, no, that's in the non-salary line, there's no personnel in that. That's all pens, paper, computers, supplies, heat, oil, all that's in non-salary. The only lines that have salary in it is this line where it says salary. So
Right.
even the non-union people, but this is the current year you're working on right now.
Yeah, but it's hard to tell
Yeah.
how much was put into the default budget when you break it down this way.
There's the salary, goes from
Right.
here to here. This is the default budget, I
This is
broke
the
it down.
budget, though.
Yeah.
This is the default budget.
When you add these two together, when you add these two columns, salary, non-salary together, gives you this number. So I gave you the default, I put it next to the current operating budget so you could see the current operating budget next to the default budget, and then I broke it into two pieces for you. There is a tab in the budget book that shows you default side by side if you'd like to see them.
Say what?
It's behind tab, well, for me, I'm sorry, tab 4. It looks like this. It's green and peach. Behind tab, there you go, that one right there. And that will show you side by side the default budgets next to each other. So it also will show you where the default totals have gone down. So it will show you that the regular education salary line went up $94,868. Part of that is because they had to hire the additional kindergarten teacher. So it's not just raises. Please don't think the teachers in regular education are getting a substantial raise. That also includes the increase to the new kindergarten teacher. You can see that the nurse speech, and psychologist, it went down because they had a change in staff. So I didn't keep the amount of money we had with the previous nurse. I put in the current nurse we have. So there's a change in the default, there's a reduction. Non-salary items, same thing right in the middle. You can see that Tamara actually asked for less in regular education in her non-salary items. So in her supplies, she asked for less. She could have said, or it could have been a one-time purchase. Say they decided they wanted a special type of table for a student or a classroom because of kindergarten they needed a special setup. That was a one-time purchase. They only asked for it that year, they don't need it again, so it falls out of the default budget. The debt service, this is an easy one, but it went down because the interest payment went down. That's part of the default budget. I don't put last year's interest rate in, I put the lower interest rate in. So this just shows you a side-by-side change to the default budget. The default budget doesn't always go up. There are parts of it that go down.
I understand that. But you've got approximately 177,000 decrease in salaries for 1 year in the default budget. And I don't know how much, approximately 70,000 of that is what we agreed to in the contract. And then I assume some of it is increases in staff. 177,000 worth?
They hired a kindergarten teacher in the warrant article. So when you pass a warrant article, that warrant article gets added onto the operating budget. So now it becomes part of the default operating budget. So there's an increase there. They also hired an additional kindergarten teacher. She has a contract. It goes on to the default. So most of that is the additional teachers, partly from the warrant article and having to hire additional staff.
Questioning.
Yes.
You have any warrant articles coming?
The board was discussing them last night.
Okay.
They were waiting to see what happened here on whether or not they were going to need to put more money into the expendable trust fund for special education or for the tuition. So they have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, a special meeting to make decisions on what you say and change the warrant articles or add warrant articles, so.
Okay. The 3 warrants are in the budget. They're in the budget book, Bob. But it's just 3 to the expendable trusts. Nothing additional.
Yeah,
All right.
no additional.
Okay,
They,
all right. Okay.
Special education has a sizable increase there. Is there projected that you know of somebody coming in, or is there a change in the law as to how you provide special ed?
This current year, we had an unanticipated placement. Other services for other children, their IEPs have changed, were unanticipated. We did not see this coming. So we had to provide the services that were in the IEP, and that's the other reason why the fund balance for this year will be less, because we were unanticipating some services we had to provide to a student.
Okay, so then basically this increase, you paid some of that into this year, but you found it in your fund balance.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's why going forward for next year, we anticipate the same level of services, but there were some changes you can see on that default page, where some student services changed, so we reflect that.
I was just curious as to, there was some new requirements by law,
No,
or you had new students that you know
we
are
had new
coming in.
students move in and their services we need to provide for them.
And we did take money out of our trust
Yes,
last
yes,
night
yes.
to add to that.
Yeah, that you,
Because you had that unanticipated outside placement, did you ask for more to replenish that?
No, but that's one of the discussions they were talking about on, because we took out $25,000 last night out of the trust fund, and it's one of the things where you can have students move in at any time, or even students that have been in your school system become identified, and then you need to provide for them, and it's unanticipated. So it was a discussion to put more money into that trust fund, but if you know of a student and the IEPs have been agreed upon and the services have agreed upon, then you budget based on what is in those IEPs.
Do you feel like the special ed budget as it stands now is sufficient in either case if there's another unexpected outside placement, or if there's not and everything's kind of the status quo?
I've talked to Sarah Reinhardt and
we
Mr. Espinal,
don't.
so to speak. We don't
think it's sufficient.
You don't think
It's not sufficient, no.
It's always changing.
If we have anything unanticipated next year, we're gonna be running into some trouble.
What would happen if there was an unanticipated?
Anything, whether it's transportation, speech, OTP, any kinds of services like that, we'd have to find it within the budget if there wasn't a money in the trust fund.
We'd have to transfer it
You have to transfer it.
from another line item.
Which is why we had a kind of a, I don't like to use the word soft freeze, but that's why we had to slow down on spending this year, because we had the money for Portsmouth High School we had to take out of the trust fund. We had changes to special education. We needed to make sure we could fund those requirements. We have to, but we also wanted to make sure the students at Grayland Central School got what they needed. So we wanted to make sure that everybody got what they needed, but we did have to slow down, take a look at where did we have money that we could move around, what things could we put a hold on for a little while, get our feet underneath us exactly, because I didn't create this budget that I'm working with right now, so I had to find out where everything came from. We got the trust fund request last night from the board, and we're in a much better place.
Okay.
But you never know. That's the problem with special education. It's this today. I literally can tell you right now, I'm gonna go into the office tomorrow and it will not be the same thing I left.
It's similar to legal fees. You don't really know what you're gonna need.
You
But
don't.
you should have it in there, something.
But then I've had, we've programmed for students and we go to start the school year and they've moved over the summer.
Okay.
And to me, it's like, oh, we have breathing room because somebody else is moving in. It's that constant ebb and flow. We don't know what we don't know until they literally come and ask Tamara for a packet and say we're moving to Greenland. And
Okay, so do we feel like this is a question mark then? In terms of what, like, perhaps there needs, like, this trust fund, where we're taking out of money for the high school, we're taking out money for special ed, maybe next year will be a miracle year where special ed stays static. But if it doesn't, then this more money and more money is gonna just be taken out of it, like, so for how long, and should we address the fund?
We're addressing last night we discussed increase, instead of having the 75,000 for the tuition, to maybe increase our special education request of 25,000 to a little bit higher, because we do have concerns that special education won't meet our needs next year.
Right.
So that's where we're currently at, Tibby.
Yeah, and I feel like, and just so everyone knows, like, that's something that, like, it's not a want, it's like a need, because if the child qualifies for something, it's like the Greenland Central School doesn't have a choice.
We don't.
It's, they need,
Yeah.
it won't be a,
Randy, what makes you say that? Do you guys know of something happening next year, or is it a matter of?
Just the current trend today with the unanticipated costs.
Right.
And that just because of today and IEPs and the K through 2 area, yes, we do.
So a simple IEP change could, within the school or within a calendar year, can affect.
a preschool actually is one of something that's very hard for us to predict, because when a child is presented at 3 years old, if they qualify for a preschool, we have to provide services for them. But we don't know, at least when we have kindergartners or students that are in our system, we know of them. Sometimes they'll just all of a sudden be presented to us as preschoolers and we have to provide services for them. Those are some of the harder ones for us to, all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, someone turned 3. They could turn 3 in December and we provide services. It's not until wait till the next year. It's when you turn 3.
at 3, then the school becomes responsible.
No.
And so that's a harder one for us, because you could have someone like you could pass this budget right now, go through the process, it gets voted on in March, and a child turns 3 and could have whatever services that are required, and we gotta come up with the money in the budget we're working in and go, and I don't have it in next year's.
Right. Now, speaking of pre-K, do you have numbers, any preliminary numbers for kids coming into the kindergarten, for next year?
That's the most predictable piece of information that we have. As Amy mentioned, the move-in situation is the most unpredictable. That's where we are faced with a move-in. In case Tamara referred to earlier, it's 3 students coming from thousands of miles away to Greenland.
Yeah.
On our doorstep today.
Yeah.
So the coming through the preschool, though, as Amy mentioned, is more predictable, because those students are identified as early as 3 years old, 4 years old, coming through our preschool. And if they're Greenland residents, then we budget for them coming into kindergarten for the following year.
So do you anticipate like 3 kindergarten teachers next year? You'll need them? And then is it the same for K through 5, let's say, for next year? Do you expect 3 teachers per grade?
Yes, currently we're 3 teachers. We're estimating 47 students coming into kindergarten next year.
Busy town
That's our
already.
projection that Jim Cadkin had made.
Wow, the 3 that came in today?
Yes.
Are they moving into 196 Fourth Avenue?
We don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
I
know
wanna
if
find
you
out.
can say,
Well, you can explain the joke. I don't get it.
No joke. I just heard today that somebody moving into that house has been for sale for, and my first question is, do they have children? And nobody gave me an answer. Yes, Pat?
So,
if you take a look at the percentages as a whole, we have approximately, 14% of our students are identified in the Greenland school system, Carla?
Is that right, Amy?
It's 15%.
15, okay, I beg your pardon. So, we're rolling the dice. If we have 25 kids, well, this year there's been a spike of the year. Let's call it 21 kids. There's probably a pretty good chance, you have a 20% chance in there that you might get somebody that's identified, so therefore that could impact that special education budget. Now, if we have people coming from 3,000 miles away, we may see a spike because we may have to provide English as a second language on a more intensified basis. So these are the things that are pretty unpredictable to us. And that's why, you'll definitely see something from us on trying to build ourselves a little bit of a buffer on that special ed account. We had, I want to use the right terminology. We had it under control a while ago. We had one particularly heavy case lead the situation, so it went down. But then, population started coming back in again. So it's very difficult to predict. But if you just take a look at pure, septic numbers, 15%, you got a shot at, getting 1 or 2 children.
So I'm with Tibby. I mean, is there enough?
Right now, for
Yeah.
the students that we know of, and the students that we have and the services we're able to provide, I do believe Sarah feels very comfortable with the number that she has provided to me. Like I said, if something changes, we're hoping that the school board will go forward, putting more money in the special education trust fund and try to build that up to help offset these unanticipated changes to IEPs and students that move in. But it's a hard predictor. I know some people don't like to have money held aside, but I have seen students move in with pretty intensive services and devastate a school district, because they have to provide the services. So having a trust fund is helpful because we can't keep the money.
Right.
So putting additional funds in that line, but we may not have students move in that need those types of services. As towns can hold on to more than we can. We can't hold on to it, so it just goes back to offset.
25K is not a reasonable backstop.
No, it isn't.
Using a sport analogy, 100K, at this point, we would feel would be a reasonable backstop in that particular area. And we would try to do it in such a way that it would not, it would come out of a position where if we had no overage, it could come out of that account. So it would increase the tax.
May I say something positive? Carla Rice, special ed.
No.
No, you
I
were being
I
great.
was just giving reality, not doom and gloom.
I can't say anything. Okay, so I just want to say too, there's been a lot of good progress in Greenland in terms of services for special ed, in that we now have a school psychologist that's there 2.5 days a week. We also have a BCBA, which is a behavioral consultant. We have an OT. We have a speech and language pathologist. So in typical terms, if a child needs services, we do have people within the school now who can take on more here, more there, change this, do that. We do a lot of scheduling. The paraprofessionals that you guys have given us, that's been great. That helps keep costs down as well. So we do have a good foundation for special ed. I think that the biggest thing is if you have an unanticipated placement or something else, that's where the cost goes up. But it's not just a roulette, there's been a lot of planning and there is a lot of service that is in place as children come in that we can weave very nicely into our system. So that's a good thing.
You try to mitigate the situation as much as possible.
Thank you, yes.
It's always our hope to keep a child in district. It is the least restrictive environment. We want to keep the children in their community. And it's not we just, don't have the services or whatever. We try really hard because this is where they really should be. They should be in their community. So we try to keep them in the school.
Just wish somebody else would pay for it, that's all.
Well, talk to the federal government.
Well, I'm planning to. Yeah. Lord, what that's gonna do.
Get him on the phone.
Yeah, I'll call him tomorrow. Yes.
I have 3 questions.
Oh.
I'll say what I think I'll just go with the first one in front of me. What can you tell me about special education contracted services? It seems that we're requesting what I would consider a significant increase over last year's budget.
Do you want me to, or do you want to answer?
Whoever knows the answer.
They're based on what the IEP say we're required to give students for services. So we look at the services in the IEPs and figure out whether or not the in-house providers, the psychologists, the BCBA, the speech, OT can provide it for them. But if they can't due to their schedule or other student needs, we have to contract out to provide those services.
Such as PT would be an example. We don't have a physical therapist, and if a child has physical therapy as part of their IEP, we contract out for that. There are certain schools and different specialists in different areas, like vision consultants. Sometimes if a child needs vision and that's part of their IEP, we contract out to a vision specialist. There are multiple, there are different times with a different, there are all sorts of different specialized services that sometimes are called for, or if there's a child who's particularly medically fragile that needs medical type of assistance. So those are our contracted services. We also do contracted services. What we've tried, instead of, we bring in people who can work within the school system too, to help, instead of sending a whole bunch of teachers out to a day of professional development too. We can also bring people in to work within the day-to-day to help.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. The budgeted number is based on current IEPs, and what you believe that you will need for contracted services cannot be provided by the people that are on staff already. Is that correct? Okay. My second question is high school special education legal fees. Is there something going on that we don't know about, or is that just money that we're saying in case something comes up? Now, I know you might not be able to answer a specific question about a legal proceeding going on. But I think you could answer that there is currently a legal proceeding.
I would just caution the committee and the public also, for the public's perspective, if you kind of narrow it down to high school legal fees, you're also narrowing it down to 4 grade levels that could easily perhaps identify students. So I would caution the committee to just be careful on.
I understand that. It's difficult for me, though, to say to the people in the town, you should put these legal fees out there when nobody's allowed to talk to us about whether, even if there is in fact a case going on. And all I'm asking is there a case going on? Is there a case that we know about? I'm not asking any names, what the case involves. Is there a case?
Yes.
Okay. And that's what the 10,000 is based on.
Once again, just like a special education student that we now know, there's potential that legal proceedings can continue into the next fiscal year budget.
Okay, so there are legal proceedings that have been going on that you believe could be continued.
That just basically just started.
And my final question is going way back to the beginning with the motion to cut $400,000. What programs now does Greenland School offer that we are not required to offer?
I'm not aware of any discretionary programs that we have.
I mean, I don't know. I'm asking.
Other than maybe.
For example, I don't know what the life skills, there's a line for life skills. I'm not sure exactly.
Here's a simple answer, and I'll start with this. Whenever we are faced, and even in my previous history, whenever we are faced with the potential of a budget cut, we look to make sure that the classroom is sacrosanct. We talk about everything outside of the classroom, so that everything that happens with the core business of education, teaching and learning, is kept intact.
Okay.
So, very simply, extracurricular activities, enrichment activities after school, new uniforms, bus travel to intramural or interscholastic sports. Those are the things that I would look at first before looking at the core of our business.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. What programs are there, what things that are not absolute? For example, this town might say, we can't afford sports at Greenland School. I'm not saying I advocate that. I'm just saying the town might say that. as a budget committee member, it's the budget committee's budget, which I think sometimes we forget. We think it's the town budget, we think it's the school budget. When we present that budget, that's the budget committee's budget, we've taken the recommendation. So when we present our budget, and people in town say, well, we know that the school asked for X amount more than the budget committee's putting out there, or the town asked for X amount more, and they stand up at the deliberative session and they say, well, budget committee, why did you say that? What do you recommend it? What do you make your basis on? I want to know what we're making our basis on. And so if we say we're going to cut something like $200,000 or $400,000, I want to know what programs, so when I can vote, I say what programs are not legally required, and, okay, now, what do I think? What do I think? So that's kind of where I'm at.
Patrick, you have something to say?
No, I just want to ask a quick question. What was the vote, just so I know for my own edification?
What, this motion
Oh,
vote?
the motion, yes.
So it's three, for, and the rest were against. And I don't vote,
Unless it's a tie.
unless it's tied.
So I don't know if we have that answer tonight, but I'd like the answer of what programs that the school offers that are not absolutely required.
So once again, as I mentioned earlier in the response to your earlier comment, whatever the wishes or decision of the budget committee is, we will go back, regroup. We have a board meeting scheduled for tomorrow night. We will prepare accordingly, and if there's willingness to accept the proposed budget as proposed, or if there's a cut, we will go back and.
But I hope you appreciate the fact that the reason I'm answering the question is I don't want us to cut money that we're not allowed to cut. I mean, I'm not gonna say we're gonna cut the teacher's contracted salaries.
No,
We
we
can't
have,
do
we
that.
have certain.
So I'm not gonna make that recommendation.
We've gotta turn the lights on, we've gotta heat the
Exactly.
building.
Right.
Yes,
Bob, just so we can move this on, take another shot at this, for the main reason of giving it back to the school board and seeing what would happen, I would make a motion to adjust the 400 to 200. And thereby having a report back to us on how that impacts the budget.
do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Wait a minute, just have a figure, we talk about $10,743,732.
Before we vote on this, can I make another comment, please? Again, I understand that you pick like a percentage because it just like takes it back to you in your mouth. And I understand that you're picking like yet another random percentage because it just didn't feel right to you. But I really urge a little more thought to the cut here. And I don't know that this is the right stage to make that kind of random number cut. I think that if we want the school board to do another pass at the budget, then the motion should be, let the school board do another pass at the budget, not let's cut $200,000. So I think I would make a motion to have the school board do another pass at the budget to see if they could come up with something slightly different, but not $200,000.
Point of order, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
That's right. Can't go with yours.
And to clarify that, the number would be 10,867,732.
There's a motion on the floor. Yes?
It's not really a random number, actually, if you look at it, it's the average for almost the last 10 years of the total increases of what we're shooting for. And it's not to say that these aren't good ideas. The problem is we got a lot more on the plate coming down. And that's what we're looking at, is the total bottom line of the town tax bill.
Yeah,
Are we
Steve,
discussing or are we seconding?
could you repeat the figure, Steve, for me, please?
10,867,752.
Jamie, you have something you want to say?
Yeah, I really think,
I'm sorry, are we coming off of the $11 million number? Or the
No,
10
10
million?
million. 11's with the warrants. and then we'll discuss that.
Okay, all right, so it would be, all right, I would have, all right, we'll get that back then.
10,743.
For
No,
simplicity's sake,
10,587.
So the original.
Oh, I'm
motion,
sorry,
Chip
10,740, yeah.
543, and you said 2.
Yeah, I finally got the right number.
You got it straight, Steve?
Yeah.
Thank you. Pat?
just for simplicity's sake on our behalf, if you do come up with a number, just, if you give us the amount, that would be easier for us to deal with, only because of the warrant articles, so
Yeah.
making it a little more complex. That's all.
I agree with you.
Thank you.
Okay, where were we?
What would you?
I'll just make a comment based on Tim, what you said. I'm not saying that I would vote for 200,000. I seconded it because, first of all, I think the school already had a pass on the budget. They already passed the budget, they gave it to us. For us to make a significant difference to the budget, I want to see what it's going to look like. I want to see what that budget's going to look like before I can vote on it. And I just need to see, we're going to cut this teacher, we're going to cut this program, we're not going to have sports, we're not going to have this, we're not going to have that. I would just feel comfortable seeing what it would look like before I could vote on it. So that's why I seconded his motion for 200,000.
Okay.
This is great.
Jamie?
Well, I think the school board can understand our overall sentiment of what needs to happen, right? I think, like, with all due respect, Pat, I mean, I don't want to give Pat a number and then assume that if they hit that number, we're gonna be like, yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
right? I think that, the school board understands that there has to be a second pass. I mean, because this is a lot of money. Like I said, I'm for the school, I'm for the teachers, I'm for the class size, but there's gotta be a give and take here. And I think that having this open discussion like this is beneficial for both parties.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, that's it.
Yes, Doug?
I think I gather what you're saying is don't give them a figure, just ask them to go back and replay the figures and bring us back another budget. Or can they, they can do it, revise
I
it?
want to see what the impact of that number is.
Okay, I'm asking him what his question is.
Oh.
Okay, because I'm looking at the people out there and the school board members, and they've already seen the vote already, 5-3, so.
Yeah.
If we don't give them a number, they'll probably come back with nothing, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's, hey, my feeling.
Well, my motion is a number.
Right.
As clarification, the only reason I asked for a number was, it was the bottom line numbers that were getting confused, so it wasn't to, put a stake in the ground.
I finally got the right one, Pat.
Beg your pardon?
I finally got the right one.
I think it's important enough where we really digest this, and I think I move everybody on the board to take a look, the budget committee, to take a look at this proposed budget. And, it's a lot of money, and I think, I think a second pass is needed. That's it, for now.
Worst case scenario, they're gonna end up with a default budget, so if they can drop and keep people happier, then maybe the better way to move. And if you give them a target, if they can't make it, they can't make it. But what does it look like when they do 10,000? What do we lose?
I don't know, I just think I just don't think it's viable to just throw out a number and say, hit it, I don't.
Well, I'm not qualified to look at this, to be honest with you. Tell them what to cut.
Well, then.
So all the more reason to put it back in the school board's hands and say, you're the ones who are qualified to look at this and go line by line and say, come back with a thoughtful approach. Again, another thoughtful approach, because the first one was thoughtful, but, you might have to cut here and there. I'm not sure what it would look like, but I would like to see what it exactly would look like, because I agree with Mark. I wouldn't feel comfortable, I would feel like it would be just too random in my head to just say yes or no.
Well, I believe Pat asked for a number.
No, he asked for a number because he didn't know what number he was. He didn't know what number he was.
I didn't know what they were dealing with because the number at the bottom have changed, because in fairness to you folks, you don't know what the warrants are, so that
No, we don't.
became too much of a moving target, Don, that's all.
This is kind of what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that if this budget, or one very close to this, were to go forward to the deliberative session and then to the town vote, that guess what? This town might finally. I never thought I'd see it happen. But there's a possibility this town could just say no, and we go to the default budget. And if that doesn't work for the school, I don't want it to happen.
Right.
So I'd rather come up with a number that we can say to the town, look, folks, we know it's still a big cut. I mean, it's still a big chunk on your taxes, but they really need this number and avoid a default budget. That's my thought process.
How much time do we have?
When's the public hearing?
Yeah, when the public, what is it?
Public
It's
January
the
9th.
January 9th?
January 9th.
January 9th.
I thought that was bond hearing.
Big Monday.
I think it's both of them, I think.
Wow.
And school budgets, yeah.
Last day to post the budget is.
I'm thinking we have availability to us next week, this week, if the budget committee wants to come back together and really hash this over and then give them a figure.
I think we gotta give it to them tonight, give them time to even begin to look. Be fair to them.
Well, my other question is, have your questions been answered? Is there anything else that you wanna know? Or if you think you know enough to give them that information, then let's do it.
I think I just want to make one comment, probably my last comment.
Your last one.
I'm pretty sure it's gonna be the last one. Okay, and it is that, and there's a lot of discussion about town, school, and the holistic, view of our budget. And I think that to speak off something Tamara said earlier, when she gives tours to people moving into town, or maybe not moving into town, people choose a town most of the time based on the school, a lot of the time. And I think that if we can do anything to keep our school running the way it is and even improve it, I think that class size thing is one of the most important things. I think there are other things probably in the budget that are important, but I think in my mind that if we can keep the student-teacher ratio, if we can make that better, then we can keep our school better, especially in that middle school year, and then it will help our town as well. So I feel like it's all very connected.
Yes,
Can I move the motion?
yes, you can. You wanna move the motion? All those in favor of moving the motion? Okay. Motion's moved.
Okay, so the budget committee is gonna get a proposal of $10,743,730.
What was that? What was it? Repeat that.
We didn't finish the vote.
There was a motion on the floor.
floor. You
Right.
just take it.
I moved to have it voted.
Oh, no, to reduce $200,000. I vote no.
Yes.
I thought you were moving towards a later date.
No, I didn't.
Oh, that's how I took it.
Okay,
So
sorry.
I'm retracting my vote.
All right.
I gotta vote.
All right,
Just to be fair.
have another vote, okay? Those in favor? Those against? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Gonna put you on the hot seat there, Bobby.
Gotta be kidding me.
What,
I vote
yes or no? Huh?
I vote against it. Okay,
We're gonna go back and take a look at what's
Would you
going
please,
on
Pat?
there, and,
Amy,
Yeah.
would you do that?
with all the,
Go back.
we understand what the situation, well, we're not just board members, we
I know.
pay our taxes as well, so,
Yeah.
it impacts all of us, that are residents, so we'll definitely go back and take a look into that. I mean, when you talk about cutting, well, you weren't talking, you mentioned some of the extra, it would certainly be a horrible lifestyle just to go to school and go to class and not have gymnastics or do sports after school or art or something like that. So we certainly have to, take a look at a more holistic approach.
You were just asking what
Right.
kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Just for the record, if the school board came back and said, we're cutting all athletics, I don't think I'd think I'd vote against that.
Me too. So, I think it's very important. Anybody have any, yes?
One thing I was asked to bring up, there was questions about the undesignated fund balance that the town holds. One of the uses we do with that every June is pay the school their $1 million bill that they send us without going to the banks and asking for money. So that's part of what we do with that. And then when the taxes come in, we replace it.
What $1 million bill is that?
The payment, the payments, it comes about $1 million when it's up to July, up to June. No.
Chip, you looked at me like you were addressing it to me. I think I understand what's going on. I think it's a cash flow situation.
No, I thought you were gonna say something to me.
No.
No, it's just a cash, it's just a cash flow situation. But somebody asked me why we had such a high, that's why, because
Karen mentioned $1.4 million at a minimum just to cover the cash flow.
cover cash flow till the tax bill roll in. So I was asked to bring that to everybody's attention since they didn't know it.
Yes,
Bob, I just want to say that I welcome anyone into the building if you'd like to take a tour of the building. I know it was eye-opening for Sal when he comes to the building and just sees how big some of our middle school classes are. It's pretty eye-opening, so I welcome and invite you anytime to come in and check it out while we're in session.
What are you serving for lunch?
Nachos are the best day.
Don't like that. I'll go in his gravy train.
Okay, yes, Don.
Did every member of the board get a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting?
That was my next.
Then I make a motion, we accept the minutes of the December 14th meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes have been accepted. Let me ask the board members one final question. Is there a possibility that you might want to come back next week and go over this one more time? Or is what we decided on tonight, that's it?
I'm available Monday.
No, we have to come back and see what the proposed. We do have before we make a recommendation.
Bob, I think we have a meeting another meeting on the 3rd.
The 3rd.
School and town review here.
Oh.
That's not before the public hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll work, huh?
Yeah, so it's only a couple weeks away.
Oh, here's.
Okay, so is there any other business before we close? Mr. Morgan?
Yes.
Do you have anything you would like to add, or Chester, do you have anything you want to add to this meeting? While you're both here? Okay. Nobody has any other business? Okay. Then the next meeting will be, what is my, what is it? January 3rd. Okay. And while I have a minute here, I want to wish everybody here in the room a very, very Merry Christmas and a very prosperous New Year. And I hope that we can get together with the school board and the budget committee and get this resolved, because like everybody else, you know, I'm not against the schools, don't get me wrong. I'm just watching the town's dollars, that's all I'm watching. Excuse me? I make a motion, I want to make a motion, sorry. Second it? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amy.
Oh, no problem. 6:30.